Hey guys, welcome back to Final Bell. So today, I've not done much football recently. I've barely done any football at all for quite some time. So I wanted to have a little bit of fun today. And I'm going to do my all-time 11 under Alex Ferguson. So my all-time Manchester United 11, I should say, under Alex Ferguson. So that's every player from 1986 to 2013. Although I believe everyone that I've picked is going to be Premier League era, so that is 1993 onwards, as that's the most successful period of Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. So that's what we're going to do. Please, as always, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, including football and MMA. Please like the video, and please leave a comment once you've sort of reviewed all my choices and that sort of thing. Right, let's get it started. So we're going to start with that number 1 shirt there, which of course is the goalkeeper. Now this really comes down to 2 players. Sorry for anyone that was expecting David De Gea. It comes down to Edwin van der Sar and Peter Schmeichel. These are the only 2 that are really in contention. And there is a very legitimate argument for van der Sar. He's a more successful goalkeeper than Schmeichel. And what I mean by that is he's won more. He's won more outside of Manchester United. He's actually won the Champions League with 2 different clubs. He was Manchester United's goalkeeper during the most successful period of our history, and he also set a record for clean sheets. However, there's other intangibles that you have to consider, such as the defences that they played in front of, their individual skills, their actual ability as a goalkeeper, their ability as leaders. I believe that they were both sort of leaders from the back in their own way. And logically, you could argue van der Sar was a better keeper in a lot of ways, as far as being more composed perhaps. He was very assured, he would calm everyone down, but I just think Schmeichel would shout at people, and forwards were literally scared of him. Forwards were scared of Peter Schmeichel. And the reality is, Edwin van der Sar, whilst a great keeper, I would never say that he saved us. He didn't have many games where he made like a save and you think that's a game-changing save. He was sort of very good positionally, but I can't recall many games where he did that. Whereas Schmeichel, it happened so many times. In the treble year against Juventus, he made ridiculous saves. Even in the final against Bayern Munich, he made a tremendous save. In the key game in the title race in, I think it was 96 against Newcastle, he saved several one-on-ones from Alex Ferdinand. So for that reason, I have to give the number 1 shirt in this team to Peter Schmeichel, and I have to admit it's more emotional than anything else, but I just think he was a better keeper for Manchester United than Edwin van der Sar was. So defenders then. I'm going to move from right to left on this. That number 2 shirt at right back, there's only one man that it can really be. Paul Parker was a great England right back, but it has to go to Gary Neville. Gary Neville would bomb up and down the right wing, had a fantastic engine, made the best of limited ability really. I mean, when I say limited ability, he was the best fullback in the country for a long period of time, so his ability wasn't that limited, but his longevity was what was incredible. He was the England right back for 10 plus years. When he was young, he had quite a lot of pace, he could always cross the ball well, and then when he was older, he was very good at sort of positioning defensively. So he was always a really reliable right back to have in your team. He could both defend and go forward with equal measure, and he would play for the team. Moving into the centre, this is a difficult choice here. So we've got the number 5 shirt and the number 4 shirt at the back there, so the 2 centre backs. This is where it got really difficult. So the number 5 shirt at the right side of the centre back, the only person that I could think of going with here, and there's 3 in contention, I had to go with Bruno Fernandes. The reason being, he doesn't make... A lot of people love defenders who slide in and make heroic challenges. Whereas Rio Ferdinand never needed to. He never needed to slide in because he was always in the right position. He'd read the game so well that he would never need to go off of his feet. He would always just be, his body would just always be between the striker and the ball. He'd always be in the right place to make an interception. He wouldn't need to do drastic actions. When he was younger, he was one of the fastest defenders I've ever seen as well, so that helped as well. He could also really play football. Great passer of the ball, pretty good touch, relatively two-footed. He has to be in there for me. Now, left centre-back. You could easily be tempted to put Nemanja Vidic in here, because this was an incredible pair for Manchester United. You could have argued that Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic were the best two centre-backs in the world at one point when they were the Manchester United centre-backs. However, I can't leave Jaap Stam out of this team. So I'm going to put my number 4 as Jaap Stam for the simple reason that I think he had a little bit of everything. He could play, he was a good footballer in the same way that Rio was. But he was very strong as well. Strong as an ox, great in the air, would bully strikers. And when he was young, he was very quick. But also what he's done outside of United, and I know that this is supposed to be a Man United video, but what he's done outside of United is just unparalleled. And for me, he's the best defender I've ever seen at Manchester United. So I can't put Vidic in there. It's got to be Jaap Stam. Now, left back. Now this is where it's probably the hardest choice. This is probably the hardest choice of the team. You've got Dennis Irwin, who played for us for a long time, from the start of the Premier League era, and then played all the way up until the treble year and even sort of a few years after that. And then you've got Patrice Evra, who was our left back during our most successful period. And they've got different qualities, and this one literally could go either way, so it's completely down to personal preference. I mean, Evra was he was quicker than Irwin, he was much more skilled on the ball than Irwin, I'd say a better leader than Irwin. But Dennis Irwin was just such a consistent player. Great set piece taker, two-footed, so this spot has to go to him. So moving into the midfield now, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to go with the central midfielders first. So you can see there you've got the number 6 shirt and the number 8 shirt. So number 6 is going to be Roy Keane. There's simply no one else who it could be. You've got some really good players that played towards the start of the Manchester United era, such as Brian Robson and Paul Ince. But they don't really, in the actual era of Ferguson, they don't compare to Roy Keane. Roy Keane was an excellent captain. He would drive us forward and he would essentially win games by himself, a la the Juventus game, 1999 semi-final of the Champions League. He pretty much drove us forward by himself, just motivated the players and inspired that entire comeback by scoring the first goal as well. In addition to that, he's an extremely underrated footballer, as well as being one of the best captains I've ever seen. He could do a little bit of everything, whilst he wasn't sort of Xavi at passing, and he wasn't sort of Lampard at goal scoring. He could do a little bit of everything. He could score, he could shoot from long range, he could get into the box, could head the ball, could tackle, do a little bit of everything, and his positional knowledge was actually very, very good. Like, he was incredibly good at just sitting and dictating the game. When he was younger, he used to have an incredible engine on him. Like in sort of the early 90s, he would have an incredible engine. He could get backwards and forwards to both boxes quite easily. So there was simply no contention for this spot. It's got to go to Roy Keane. That brings us on to number 8. Once again, there's not really any competition for this. It has to be Paul Scholes. There's simply no one else that can be there. Scholes had such longevity, and that was due to the way that he adapted his game, and he's even sort of talked about this himself. When he was young, he was kind of like, almost a little bit like an English Iniesta. He had excellent ball control, he could turn players, he could dribble, he had a little bit of speed, never had loads of speed, got in the box, scored goals, could shoot, pass, used to thread little balls through, very, very creative. And he sort of did go through a dark spell for a couple of years. We changed the formation when we bought Veron, and then Paul Scholes was sort of not having the same influence that he used to. So he then started to adapt his game, and he sat deeper and started to control games. he would take the ball off of the centre-backs, he would always get in the right position to do that, and he would pretty much start the attacks, and he could ping the ball around the pitch, like take it wherever you wanted, and he was still capable. He didn't score as many goals once he adapted his position, but he did still score some very important goals, such as the 2008 Champions League, and we ended up winning that. He scored the winner in the semi-final against Barcelona. So Scholes, such great touch, great passing, one of the most sort of technically gifted players that I think I've ever seen. So yeah, number 8 shirt goes to him, no contest again. Now the wingers is where this is going to get interesting. So number 11 shirt on the left hand side goes to Cristiano Ronaldo. So Cristiano Ronaldo can't not be in this team, and I've sort of felt, for reasons that I'm going to explain, this was the best place to put him. He can't not be in this team because he's the only person that has won the Ballon d'Or during Ferguson's time. He was the best player in the world in his prime. He was, for sort of a 3-year period between 2006 it started really, and then 2009 when he left, he was unequivocally the best player in the world in that time, and he was definitely the talisman of the United team. So in that time we won 3 titles, and we won the Champions League, and we got to the Champions League final the year after that, and he was a massive part of all of that. And whether you like him or not, or whether you think Messi's better or not, you can't deny his greatness in that 3-year period. You just can't do it. So I'm having Ronaldo on the left hand side, and this leads me into my final choice, which is potentially controversial, but I don't necessarily think it should be. So on the number 7 shirt on the right hand side, I'm going to pick David Beckham there. And the reason why, I went for a 4-4-2 because that was Ferguson's most common choice of formation, and you have to have Ronaldo in this team. You can't not have Ronaldo, so it becomes a choice between Beckham and Giggs. Now Giggs had a lot of longevity, and he also, like Scholes, adapted his game. So he was a flying winger when he was younger, and he sort of became more of a central midfield playmaker when he was older. So I think for longevity, Giggs would always get there ahead of Beckham, and I think a lot of people probably do believe that he was more valuable than Beckham to Manchester United. But here's my opinion basically. David Beckham, I thought Ryan Giggs, whilst capable of being a brilliant player, was also an inconsistent player. And people do forget these things when they look back, because they look back nostalgically and they look back emotionally. And they do often forget that Giggs, even when he was older, had a lot of bad games. He would have a lot of games where he didn't really influence it. The ability that he had, did he influence games as much as he potentially could have done? He was definitely a leader in the dressing room, so you can't criticise him for that. But if you look at David Beckham, excellent free kick taker, best free kick taker of all time. Prove me wrong on that. Prove me wrong. David Beckham's the best free kick taker of all time. I think he gets underrated. His football is underrated because of how famous he is outside of football. But when he was in his prime, so if you're looking at sort of the treble year of 1999, and then sort of 2 or 3 years after that to when he actually left the club, if you look, I've watched quite a few classic games from back then, and everything was going through him. Like, you look at the crosses that he was able to provide, the amount of assists that he actually got. I mean, this was before people paid attention to assists, but Beckham must have got loads. If you clocked his, he'd have had probably the most in the Premier League for 2 or 3 years running. Like, in the treble year, everything that we created, nearly everything, a lot of it came through crosses on the right hand side. And it was York and Cole sort of heading the ball in, or maybe King and Scholes getting into the box and getting on the end of crosses, but Beckham created nearly everything that we had. On top of that, he didn't just score free kicks. He scored from open play as well. He scored some brilliant chips, could score from long range, and his work rate was phenomenal. You could literally never question his attitude. And all of the stuff that he does, free kicks, corners, crosses, it's not because he's got some sensational ability. He was never some amazing dribbler or anything like that. He's literally a product of practice and hard work for years and years and years. and he deserves everything that he's getting now. He's got a lot of money, got a lot of fame, got a lot of success. He deserves it, so he is our number 7. Right, getting on to the strikers now, another quite difficult choice. So I'm going to do the number 9 first. So number 9, I believe this person couldn't be left out of the team. He was an absolute talisman during the early 90s, didn't play for Man United as long as some others, wasn't actually that prolific of a goal scorer, but he would spur people on a little bit like Roy Keane. He would spur people on to just be better. You could see that he had a massive influence on the players around him, and he also scored extremely important goals at key times that were very important for us winning the title in those sort of days between 93 and 97. So that of course is Eric Cantona. There wasn't a way to exclude him from this team. You can't really talk about Sir Alex Ferguson. That success in those early years was largely down to Eric. As good of a team as we did have around him in those times, he was a talisman. He was the most important player in the team, and for that reason, he makes it into our team as the number 9. So the number 10 was a much more difficult choice. And it came down to 2 players. Like, we've obviously had some great strikers. We've had Mark Hughes, Dwight York, Andy Cole, Solskjaer, Wayne Rooney, Louis Saha, Ruud van Nistelrooy. All these sort of players, even Robin van Persie. You know, we've had great strikers during Ferguson's era. So it was really hard to pick one. But I narrowed it down to Ruud van Nistelrooy and Wayne Rooney, and it was very tough to choose between both of them. So Ruud van Nistelrooy was obviously the more prolific goal scorer, more of sort of an out and out striker, more of an out and out number 9, just played on the shoulder of the last defender, probably the best goal scorer I've ever seen in my lifetime. So it was very tempting for me to put Ruud in, especially it's quite easy to forget. It's easy to think about Wayne Rooney in sort of the last few years of his career where he was a complete shell of his normal self. He just used to zip passes out to the right wing, and he would get the ball and not really be able to do anything with it, not be able to influence the game that much. But you can't look at that and then forget what he was like in his early years at Manchester United. We signed him in 2004, straight after the Euros, where he broke his foot. So we signed him immediately after that. He burst onto the scene with a hat-trick, and I shit you not, every team that played against him feared him. He was one of those sort of players. Rooney was feared by opposition teams, and for good reason. He had pace, he had power, he could score from anywhere, he could dribble. So Wayne Rooney is going to be our number 10. And it's really because of the potential that he had. I mean, potentially, you could argue that he didn't live up to what he could have been. A lot of people thought he should have been a better player than Cristiano Ronaldo. It didn't work out that way, but I don't think that should take away from the player that he actually was. He ended up breaking United's record for most goals. You can't ignore that either. Like, longevity-wise, even though a lot of people do remember him for being past his prime in these sort of last few years when Manchester United have really jumped the shark as a team, so we do remember him for that, and rightfully so. But it doesn't take away from what he was able to do prior to these years and what he was actually like when we were successful. So Wayne Rooney gets in. So that is it. That is Ferguson's all-time 11. So you got Schmeichel in goal, Fernandes and Stam centre-backs, Gary Neville right-back, Dennis Irwin left-back, Keane and Scholes centre midfield, best double pivot of all time, David Beckham on the right, Cristiano Ronaldo on the left, and then you've got Eric Cantona and Wayne Rooney in the front. Again, this is just completely my opinion, but I feel that I've given pretty good justifications for all my choices here. So anyone that's got their own opinion or wants to agree or disagree, please tell me why in the comment section, and as always, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more of this sort of content. Thanks very much for listening, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.